every single thing in the universe is conscious, just to varying degrees. So we're going to start with number one, inanimate objects. So if y'all have heard the saying, if these walls could talk, all right, where do you think that came from? That came from esoteric, occult knowledge, hidden knowledge. So obviously, you know, let's do an example here. Obviously this phone bank charger is not conscious like me and you, but it does have a very, very, very basic form of conscious. All right, so objects, things can remember events, remember people, remember things. All right, so I'll give you an example. A haunted house. So let's say a tragedy happens in a house and we'll say like a murder or something, right? You go into the house and you feel like this dark energy, right? Like, you know, you could feel it. Like, you know, something really bad happened in the house. So that's because the house remembers. The movie Beauty and the Beast pays homage, gives a direct reference to this knowledge, right? Because some of the characters in the movie, if you remember, if you watched it, were inanimate objects that were speaking, communicating with the princess. All right, obviously they don't have conscience like us, but they are conscious. And in Islam, it is a belief that when you pass away and you're being judged by God, every single thing that you've ever encountered, including inanimate objects, will be testifying either for you or against you during Judgment Day. So, little fun fact for y'all. Pretty. All right, so the second type of consciousness is mineral crystal consciousness. All right, so crystals, they have likes, dislikes, and they grow faster under certain conditions. Like crystals, they grow faster if they grow under the light as opposed to darkness. And depending on their molecular structure, crystals actually interact with us, with our energy, and calm us down. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you're hanging out, right? You're sitting down, chilling, maybe you're reading a book, and then all of a sudden, a friend of yours comes and they're angry, right? Something happened to them, maybe they're on a car crash or they just broke up with their boyfriend, girlfriend, and then they come to you, they tell you the story, all of a sudden you start getting riled up. It's like, oh man, you start getting angry for your friend, or you just don't want to hear their stuff and you get frustrated, like, why are you telling me this? Your energy shifted from being in a relaxed state to a frustrated state. All right? It's because your friend literally transferred their energy to you, and now it's manifesting within you. It's growing within you. So it's the same thing with a crystal. A crystal, its energy never changes. It's set and it's powerful too. Right? Crystals, if you look at the molecular structure, it's very dense. Right? So the energy that it has is very strong, especially if it's a larger crystal. So when you walk into these crystal shops, this is why you feel like that calming effect. Right? It grounds you. It literally grounds you. Now, that being said, I want to make this very clear. Crystals that are used for healing purposes or magical purposes or for protection, whatever, that is nonsense. And that's also a major sin. All right? Because you're essentially telling God, oh, hey, I don't really trust you to protect me. I don't really trust you to heal me. Or even worse, like you're using it for magical purposes. That, and in God's eyes, that's blasphemy. You're slapping him in the face, right? So do not do this. Try to use it for healing or magic or protection. You're just gonna take away the protection that God has for you already. You're gonna make yourself more vulnerable to demonic attack going forward from other witches or just demons in general. So do not do this. Yeah, but crystals, minerals, all that stuff, they're conscious. All right, so next up we have plant and fungus consciousness. Plants actually grow faster when you speak to them and or play classical music. Plants also scream if you deprive them of water. Now the scream is too high frequency that we can't hear it. It's imperceivable to our senses, to our ears, but scientists have measured that they actually do scream just in a very high pitched frequency. When it comes to fungus, this is crazy stuff. This is all scientific, by the way. Fungus communicate with each other using mycelium, which is kind of like the fungus roots, the threads that connect them to each other. They send to each other electrical impulses, much like our brain uses synapses and neurons to communicate with other parts of the brain. The mycelium does the same thing, all right? And scientists have found out that they even use words, right? Like fungus use words to communicate with each other. Scientists have found out that fungus are capable of spatial recognition, short-term memory, decision making, and of course communication with the other fungus, with the other mushrooms. Number 4, animal consciousness. So animals have built entire societies. I'm talking bees, ants, wolves, lions. 4 completely different animals, but they still have entire societies where each member has a role to play with a hierarchy. They communicate with each other. Sometimes they communicate with us. You know, if you have a pet, like a dog or a cat, you know this to be true. Like they can literally read your mind. They can tell when you're upset, when you're happy. Monkeys have been shown to use tools. Same thing with birds. Shown to use like a stick, put into an ant hole, and then bring out ants or whatever insect it's trying to get, and eat it. Crazy stuff. Very, very complex. Ravens have actually been shown to have long-term intelligence. They can recognize a human face even after several months, right? Like the scientist conducted an experiment where he upset the ravens. I think he was tagging them and stuff, and then they recognized them, so they would get really riled up whenever he came around. So for a whole year, he wore a mask to disguise himself, and the ravens didn't bother him because they didn't know it was him. After the year finished, he took off his mask, walked outside, and they started harassing him. I think they started pooping on him and stuff. Crazy stuff, man. And the ravens, their brains are this small. All right, so next up on the list for consciousness, we have the elemental spirits. So the elemental spirits are the spirits that inhabit the 4 elements that comprise our reality. Those 4 elements being fire, earth, air, and water. Now, what are these entities called? Well, you probably recognize some of them. Earth being gnomes. Gnomes, that's right, the little men that are 2 to 3 feet tall that scurry around in the forest and the caves. Yeah, those are real. As far as air, those are called sylphs. Sylphs look like fairies. They're, you know, little people made out of air that fly around and stuff. Yeah, those are sylphs. Fire spirits are called salamanders, and just like their real life counterparts, they look like lizards. Every single time you light a fire and you see those sparks, that's the salamanders moving around. Water spirits are called mermaids. That's right, the mermaids really do exist. We just can't perceive them. So, in Christianity, elemental spirits are known as demons. In Islam, they're known as jinns. What are jinns? They're people made out of smokeless fire. What is smokeless fire? It's energy. What's their nature? Are they evil? Are they good? Well, neither. They're like us. They're neutral. Just like humans, you got your good people, you got your bad people. Same thing with the elementals. You know, some of them are good, some of them are bad, most of them are in the middle. But it's better you don't encounter them at all. And just like us, they have societies. In the ocean, you got the marine kingdom. You know, these mermaids, mermen, merchildren have little towns and cities where they go about their daily lives, just like us. Same thing with the gnomes. They live in the canopies, they live in the trees, they live in the caves. They got their own little communities right there. I know, wild stuff. Just like us, they're born, they live, they have families, they have kids, and they die. All right, so very, very similar to us. They communicate with us through rituals. All right, so the Native Americans have, throughout their entire history, Native Americans have had rituals where they meet with the elementals, with the nature spirits, to get information about where the herds are going or what the weather is going to bring. Same thing with the African tribes. Voodoo, they work with the nature spirits. So some of them actually worship God, and some of them can be led astray by Satan. So in the Quran, God says that Satan worships in the heart of men and jinn. Not just men. He specifically said men and jinn, meaning that our energy brethren over here also are susceptible to being misguided. So another thing about elemental spirits is that they're often mistaken for ghosts. So if you ever hear about these stories about poltergeists, You know, like they're shutting doors, they're breaking dishes, they're breaking windows, all that stuff. There's a 99.9% chance it's a pissed off elemental spirit. And on top of that, if you guys have heard of the phenomena where people just light up on fire, it's called spontaneous combustion. It's very rare, but it does happen. That's because of salamanders. And houses lighting on fire randomly, salamanders do that. All right, so these entities, again, most of them are neutral. The bad ones are very dangerous. You don't want to mess around with these guys. So here's the thing. As many of you know, Disney loves to put ancient occult knowledge right in front of our faces for our kids to learn and implant into their subconscious. So the movie Elemental, which just came out I think last year or 2-3 years ago or something, is literally about the elemental spirits and how they live in their own societies, and they don't like mix with each other and stuff. So really interesting that they would literally put this right in front of your face, and 99% of the people that watch the movie will never have a clue about the actual truth that they're being exposed to and their children are being exposed to. All right, number 6, we got me and you, human consciousness. All right, so our consciousness is the highest form of consciousness in the material realm. God gave us the gift of human consciousness so we can have a personal relationship with us. We're the only creation in material realm capable of having an actual relationship with the Creator. All right, this is why God loves us so much. The difference between us and angels is that angels do not have free will. They are not capable of not loving God, but we are, because God didn't want to force us to love Him. He wanted us to willingly love Him as a father. So our consciousness is very complex, it's very dynamic, and 95% of people on earth will never fully realize the potential of their consciousness. So what are we capable of? What's the big deal of human consciousness? Well, for starters, we're capable of telepathy, we can read minds, clairvoyance, we can tell the future, clairaudience, we can hear things that aren't in the physical realm, we can heal people, if God ordains it, of course, and we can remote view. So we can use our consciousness to go to other parts of the world and see what's actually happening in real time and train ourselves to do that. But that's a subject for another video. In the Quran, Allah states that when He created Adam, when He created mankind, He had all the angels bow down to Adam. This is how much God loves us. He ranks us above angels. Okay, when Adam was in the Garden of Eden, he had angels minister to him. He had angels basically acting like butlers towards Adam, getting him food, drinks. So that just gives you a little glimmer of what we have to expect if, inshallah, we make it to heaven. Yeah, man. Pretty cool to be a human.